Gentleman yields back. Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Moulton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Colby, thank you very much for visiting my office for a long discussion last year. I appreciated that engagement. My reading of the NDS is that it clearly ranks threats around the world, putting the homeland first, deterring China second, and everything else a distant third. Is that accurate?
I think the homeland is obviously put first in the same way as it was in 2018. I think the first island chain is kind of the significant weight of effort that military focuses, as I said in my opening statement.
So the strategy also focuses quite carefully on the risk of simultaneity,
yes,
meaning two simultaneous conflicts, either pre-coordinated or because an adversary takes advantage of us being tied down somewhere else. If that is a significant concern and China is the greatest threat, doesn't beginning a war in Iran not really help with deterring China?
I think the strategy is not saying that we're not going to do operations, and this happened under administrations of both parties. It actually specifically goes into that. It's saying we need to be prepared for this. Obviously, the things I mentioned, but also the allies and partners stepping up. And we do see that actually in the Middle East right now. We see Israel, the Gulf partners,
so one of the
some
things
of our European allies
we discussed in my office was concerns about magazine depth, which you know you've heard both from this committee and the China committee. Are you concerned about that today in the Indo-Pacific?
I think I think we have anticipated this reality. We feel good about where we are.
Just to be clear, you anticipated a war with Iran.
No, we anticipated the need for dramatic action on. That's exactly what the strategy says under the president's leadership. Is we know we have very significant magazine depth across the force. That is also going to be able to support presidents of either party, et cetera, in the future, being able to use the military. But we need to get better performance, and that's why we're all leaning in on it.
You're not concerned about the number of missiles that we are using in Iran today?
I'm confident in the situation.
Okay, that is not a view shared by many of the officers who work in the Pentagon. So to confirm, just to be clear, you're arguing that fighting a war with Iran helps to deter China. Is that accurate?
Well, I think there's different debates about this. This is about the threat the Islamic Republic poses directly. That's sufficient for justifying the action. And we have a scoped objective, and right now, sir, and you know this from your distinguished military background, we have gotten through a lot of the preliminary campaign of bringing down the air defense, and now we're getting topic, and we're using, as the president indicated, a lot more of the munitions, which we have in very plentiful supply. So I think we're going to be in good shape. And this, sir, I would.
So just to be clear, you think we're going to be in good shape for deterring China because we're bogged down in the Middle East with a war against Iran, and we're not using.
I think if we activate what the president and we are calling for, and with support from the Congress and better performance of the defense industry and better behavior and sort of contributions by allies, we're going to be in great shape.
So let me just ask: Does that Operation Epic Fury deter China?
I think there's an argument that it can have some deterrent effect.
Just yes or no?
What I do see is that
I know what we want to know. Do you view?
I can give you more specificity. We do see that others around the world, and conscious that we're in an open hearing, are very impressed by the prowess of the joint force and are.
But do you think, as someone who's focused on China for a long time, do you think it deters?
It contributes to deterrence. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, and yet for years you have argued that supporting Ukraine does not help deter China. So can you square that circle for us?
I can, because, I mean, first of all, I'm a public government official at this point. This document and this efforts by our administration are precisely to get ahead of a problem. That's what strategy is about. This administration is getting after the munitions problem under the president's leadership and the secretary's leadership, and we need help from Congress, Republicans and Democrats, to say not only the money, but better efforts by our defense. Ms. Jacobs and I were talking about this the other day.
But listen,
we need better performance by our defense industry. I think that's something that's shared across.
Mr. Colby, getting after our magazine depth problem is not shooting them all off in the Middle East. All right, I don't think that really helps. Now, look, you talk about a lot about burden sharing, and I think there's bipartisan agreement on the value of burden sharing. We might disagree on how we treat our allies, but we all want them to do our part. The NDS states the Department of War will empower regional allies and partners to take primary responsibility for deterring and defending against Iran and its proxies. Those are the words you wrote in the National Defense Strategy. How does the U.S. going to war with Iran represent our allies taking primary responsibility for the Iran threat?
Well, I think Israel is a pretty excellent example of the kind of ally we want that is taking. I mean, they're taking.
Oh no, just to be clear, Secretary Rubio said that we are burden sharing for Israel because we started the war on their timeline. So I'm asking how our allies are burden sharing for us.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again? Sorry.
I'm asking how our allies are burden sharing for us.
Well, I mean, Israel is obviously doing it. We see it from the Gulf partners where there's a lot of munitions depth, et cetera. So, and actually some of the European, Canadian Prime Minister said.
We're coming to the end. How many pages was your opening statement? I'll tell you, it's 1,700 words, 177 sentences. You devoted one sentence to the war in Iran, and not one word to the 6 soldiers who have been killed in action. Do you think that's appropriate today?
I have only the deepest respect for those soldiers and their families, sir.
Gentleman's time's expired. Chair, now recognize